Good Saturday morning to everybody. Glad you're joining me today. Hope to bless you with some scripture and some storytelling this morning, and hopefully get us all started off on the right foot on this great weekend that we're about to have. I'm looking forward to having fellowship with all of you tomorrow. It's just been great to kind of get back into the swing of things as far as meeting together and having our Bible study on Wednesday nights as well. That's just been great to be able to sit down and have a meal and pray and fellowship and read the Word. It's been something that we were kind of robbed of, if you will, a few months back, but it's just been great to get back in the swing of things, and things kind of almost seem back to normal. So I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm also just want to mention that a couple of weeks ago I confessed from the pulpit that I'm not perfect, but I have some issues when I'm in drive-through lines waiting for my food to get ready, and I uh, I have these episodes of just kind of like maybe blacking out a little bit, seeing red when I'm getting bad service or whatever during a drive-through line. But I've had a lot of people reach out to me about that. Actually, more making fun of me than anything, but. It's been funny to hear people's stories about their drive-through experiences and whatnot. But I do appreciate all the support in that manner. But anyway, let's get started this morning. I want to just start off by saying that we're going to just talk about a word today, and we mentioned this in my Bible study last Wednesday, and we're going to talk about what it means to be contaminated by the world. And that's something that we obviously do not need to do. We don't need to be contaminated by the world, and it's so much more easy in today's climate, in today's times, to become more like the world, to become more attached to the world, to make yourself want to be um, identified by the world, have the attributes of the world, the characteristics of the world. And the Bible cannot be any more clear about that and how we're not supposed to be contaminated by the world. And when we think about the word contamination, it's normally connotates something bad. You don't ever say my garden is contaminated with flowers, right? That's just nonsense. You would say my garden is perhaps contaminated with weeds, or when something is contaminated, you normally think of things like bed bugs or cockroaches or snakes or squirrels or any of those things like that. Those things are considered contaminants because they're not in the place they're supposed to be. Okay, and we want to rid whatever area that is, whether it's in our house, our car, our bed, our shed, whatever it is. We don't want those things in those areas because they're not supposed to be there, bottom line. And a lot of times we'll jump through hoops, pay money, upon money to get these things out of the places they're not supposed to be. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And so when we first bought this house back about 6 years ago, it was one of the first houses on the cul-de-sac, and so there was a lot of open field next to our house, and so we had a mouse problem, and we set traps. We have an exterminator, and they were just kind of invading our house. And luckily, they were mostly confined to the garage, and they were just really attracted to the dog food. And I remember one time I was out in the garage, and I had some traps set, and I hear these like rustling and this scratching and squeaky sound going on in my garage. I'm like, where is that coming from? And I go over to the table where we had the dog food setting, where trying to keep it off the ground, and there were probably, I don't remember, I would say 5 or 6 mice inside that like chicken jerky that you feed your dogs. It's like a clear sack. And so these mice were in there. They had dug themselves through the bag and were inside eating all the jerky. And so I took care of that problem. I'm not going to tell you how, but I took care of that problem. But the bottom line is contamination is bad. And biblically, we are never supposed to be in line with the world. We're never supposed to get contaminated by the world, and the scriptures completely back that up. So let's take a look at a few scriptures today. The first scripture I'm going to read is in 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 11 through 13. It says, "Dear friends, I warn you as temporary residents and foreigners to keep away from worldly desires that wage war against your very souls. Be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then, even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your honorable behavior and they will give honor to God when he judges the world." And Peter says there that we are temporary residents and foreigners. Okay? So what Peter's saying there is like this world is not our home. Thank God, right? This world is not our home. This is not our final destination. This is not where we're going to wind up. This is not our forever home. Our home is in heaven. God is preparing a place for us, his house. He's building a mansion, and his mansion has many rooms, and we are all going to be there when it's all over. And so we have to focus on that. We have to focus on the fact that this place is not our home. We're temporary residents and foreigners, but at the same time, what do we have to do? We have to be good stewards while we're here. We have to, lead others to the way of the Lord and teach others about what Jesus has done for us. And so we cannot become friends with the world so much where we are contaminated by the world. Let's look at the next scripture. That's going to be James chapter 4. James chapter 4. That's going to be verses 2 through 3. Verses 2 and 3. 2 through 4. And James says, "Yet you do not have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And when you ask for it, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what gives you pleasure." What pleasure is he talking about? He's talking about the pleasures of the world. You are contaminated by the world, so you're asking God for things of this world that will bring you pleasure. In verse 4, he says, "You adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God?" Wow. We don't want to be enemies of God. Okay? Not only does James call us enemies of God here, he also calls you an adulterer. And we all know what that means. Okay? So we are not supposed to be friends of the world. And if you say that you're a friend of the world and you love the things of this world and you are, contaminated by the things of this world, then you are an enemy of God. Plain and simple. The last scripture I'm going to read to you today is going to be in John chapter 18. We're going to be reading verse 36. And this is a situation where Jesus is before Pilate. And Pilate is questioning him. Pilate doesn't really want to crucify him. Obviously, he gives in later to the pressure of the crowd. And Pilate ultimately winds up just, kind of giving in and handing over Jesus to be crucified. But Pilate's asking him all these questions and wondering what Jesus is all about and who he is. And in verse 36, Jesus answers Pilate. He says, "My kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is not of this world." Isn't that awesome? That Jesus tells us that his kingdom is not of this world. Now, what's that mean for us? That means that our kingdom is not of this world. Okay? Our kingdom is not on earth. And I've heard it put many ways. You can say things like, this life is just a blip on the radar of eternity. We're just passing through. This is just our temporary home. We're just pitching a tent. We're not here forever. You can go on and on about what this world should mean to us. But what we have to focus on today is that this world is not our home. Could you imagine if it was? Could you imagine if this was it? How depressing would that be? If this was the end, if this was your forever home. That's not how this is supposed to work. Okay? Jesus teaches that. His kingdom is not of this world. Okay? He left his kingdom and came to this earthly kingdom, if you will, to bring others back to his kingdom in heaven. And so today, as you are battling things in this world. You know, a lot of things are happening right now. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of hate, and it's easy to get lassoed into that and to start acting like the world and spewing hate and spewing bad language and being violent and doing things that you normally wouldn't do or a Christian shouldn't do. And so we've got to understand today that we are not of this world, and your identity, if you are a Christian, should have nothing to do with this world. There's a lot of people that might be watching this video now that you know that know people that have this problem, but the most important thing about them this past year has been their political affiliation. That is not the most important thing about you. And we have got to rid that mindset out of our lives that being a Republican, being a Democrat, being an independent, being this, being that, that is not the most important thing about you. That is you being contaminated with the things of this world and the things that are not going to, allow you to see God's goodness, allow for people to see God's goodness in you, if that's the most important thing about you. So today, try to focus on the fact that this is not our home. Our home is waiting for us. And it's gonna happen. And if we're gonna fight the good fight here on earth, and if we're gonna not be contaminated by the world, then we've got to look up. We've got to look towards heaven. We got to look for that place that Jesus is building for us. And it's got so many rooms, and they're all made for us. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great Saturday. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. God bless you, and go be the church.